I get it. That's neat. Now I know myself even more, and it's kind of a fun journey. Then think a little more. Am I really angry, or am I just scared of something? Am I fearful? Is there something else going on? And here's the magic part. The most important step of all this. You ever feel like you got a bunch of shit going on in your head, or in your body, anxiety, fear, anger, depression, resentment, jealousy, insecurities, any of that? I do. And I'm sitting here working on this motherfucker. And as I'm putting it back together, because I did figure this shit out, I got to thinking, this could be a good manly way to explain feelings. Us men, especially as American men, are taught, don't be an inconvenience, especially with your emotions. If you're sad or insecure or jealous, keep that shit to yourself. But it's a new age, man. I'm a new age. It's also, things are changing. And long story short, I think it's more the age I'm at. I'm tired of holding on to shit, man. Because I acknowledge that I have some shit that I'm holding on to. So thank you, PTSD, because you put me in a corner where I was going downhill really fast. And finally got to a point that where I'd been before in life. You know the story. I was a suicidal teen. A couple times, actually. I don't know if I've mentioned the other times. But, yeah. Put me in a place to either pull a trigger, literally, and say night-night, or pull the trigger and get some help. So I got some help and talked to some psychologists and whatnot, and they helped out. And a lot of things, a big thing that I've learned from that is discerning, what are symptoms of PTSD and what are just everyday life things. And that helps, because not everything's PTSD. Used to feel like it, but I know it's not. So in that regards of, I used to think, everything's PTSD. And then I really started calming shit down and really mapping everything out and laying it out on display so I could figure out what's what. So if you do or don't have PTSD, it doesn't really matter. So what I'm getting at is anger or crankiness. Let's just call it crankiness. I think we all do it, men and women. You can both get something from this, but I'm going to talk as if I'm talking to a gentleman, more analytically and data-oriented with shapes and things that physically move stuff. You ever get in a mood where you're just all of a sudden just kind of irritable or cranky, or just like you're just being kind of shitty, kind of barky, ill-tempered, short-tempered, snappy, just irritable, and you really don't know why? Maybe you have the capacity to stop and acknowledge, like, shit, dude, I am irritable. I'm irritable. Okay, I'm irritable. Okay. Just taking a moment to actually stop and acknowledge, like, become conscious of what's going on, instead of just being in a shit mood. Like, just leave me alone. Just I already told you. No, just leave me. What's going on? I'm feeling irritable. That's good stuff. That's important to be able to do that. But we're going to take it to another level, a few levels. Acknowledging you're irritable. I'm going to backtrack. This thing, holy shit, I haven't been taking care of it. I bought it when I was like in the midst of like the worst stages of PTSD, and I just didn't give a fuck about anything. So I bought this and I was like, whatever. Does it run? Great. Just like in life. Like, hey, I'm not miserable. I'm fine. It's fine. I'm fine. It's fine. And here lately, it's been dragging ass real bad. Not performing. Blowing a shit ton of smoke. Like, I'm driving up a hill. I turn around. I can't see behind me because there's so much smoke. That's like the midst of like, I'm really cranky. I'm really irritable. I'm going to snap. Like, it gets to a point where, like, you need to do something. And most of us, like, I don't know. Some of us will go, have intercourse or please ourselves or do drugs or drink or fight or go for a walk in the woods or meditate or creek dips, whatever your method is. I forgot my fucking point. We get to a point where we need to do something. And that's where I got with this machine. Don't worry. I'm getting somewhere. So this is kind of like a metaphor for diving into the subconscious and trying to deal with shit. It's scary. It's ugly, especially if you're new to it. And all this stuff is like, I don't even, where do I even start? Key is to start somewhere. And what started out as some smoke and the machine wouldn't go fast, well, dove me into this journey of understanding more and more about what's going on inside the machine or inside your machine, right? So I dove around, basically learned about carburetor, learned how to disassemble a carburetor, more detail of how it works, what type of air filter, how much airflow, how little airflow, how too much airflow, how much oil, what type of ignition system, what type of fuel filter, how to disassemble this, how to take all this shit apart and put it back together. And National One's great. I'm using this as a metaphor to communicate to you that starting your journey on wellness, just figuring out some chronic stress, chronic anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever your story is, oftentimes it feels easier to just let it be, ignore it. It's working, so why dive into it? If it works, don't fix it. But if you really step back and ask yourself, is it really working? Are you really working? Are you at your prime? Not in age, but are you the best you can be right now? Are you feeling the best? Are you running the best? Are you operating? If you're not, man, really all you need to do is start poking around. Luckily, I know enough about mechanics and whatnot to be like, all right, well, it's not running. Sounds like it's out of gas. It's not. So there's a fuel problem. Just like if you're feeling down and sad and you're like, there's just not enough happiness coming through my body. Well, you got a happiness supply issue. So what's impeding the fuel from getting to the motor, or what's impeding happiness from getting into your life? And really, that's it. That's all I got. And this overall message is start, and it's scary. I mean, even for me, it's scary. I have a degree in electronics engineering, but that was 13 years ago, and I've never really used it except for stuff like this. So I get how wires and circuits and fucking diodes and all that shit work. And motors and gas. I got a basic understanding, but guess what? So do you. You kind of know how you are. You know what makes you angry. And the other big point I want to talk about, this is really the initial purpose of the video, was confusing symptoms. So if you're good enough to acknowledge when you're, having a fuss, or you're cranky and irritable, if you have that ability, which is pretty awesome if you do, to be able to stop and acknowledge, like, I'm irritable. It's not everyone around me. Everyone else has pissed me off. It's really not that. I'm just irritable. And I'm looking for reasons to validate my irritability. So I, bark at other people. It's them. But if you actually stop and ask yourself, what are they doing? Oftentimes it may come out like, they're just too helpful. They're too nice. They're asking too many questions to help me. Maybe they're not doing anything wrong. Maybe you're just irritable. But I encourage you to take the next step. Irritability has its own source. So are you angry? Angry has a whole bunch of sub-branches under it. Resentment, jealousy, insecurities, fear. Fear is a big one. All those can present to the beginner as anger. I'm fearful, anxious, depressed. I feel stupid. I'm insecure. To the untrained, that's going to present as anger. And if you're even less trained, it'll just present as irritability. So if you work that backwards, first acknowledge you're irritable, then acknowledge, well, maybe you're angry. Then think a little more, am I really angry, or am I just scared of something? Am I fearful? Is there something else going on? And here's the magic part. The most important step of all this. Once you start, you don't have to do anything with whatever you discover. You don't have to. Because if you decide whatever you find you're going to fix, now you're working with more fear and more anxiety. Because now you're obligated to fix stuff. If you decide you have to fix it, if you find it, fixing stuff is hugely a part of coping mechanism, trauma-based. Talked to my psychologist today. It's been a while. It was really cool. That's one thing we talked on was, my need to fix things. If I see a problem, I need to fix it, or I feel anxious. That's a trauma response. I'm trying to reestablish value for myself, because if I can fix it, then I'm worth something. If I can't fix it, then I'm worthless. It's a trauma response, right? So a big rule that I've tried to apply, I'm not great at it by any means, but I'm a lot better now than I was before. Starting out with the journey of self-development, self-healing, self-discovery, whatever you want to call it, if you go into it giving yourself permission to not have to do anything with what you discover. You don't have to do anything. Get rid of that obligation. Just noticing it and being aware of it and not denying yourself, like, yeah, that's what's going on. Okay, that's it. It's not good, it's not bad. Even if it is good or bad, it doesn't even really matter. Just acknowledging that you got some junk in the trunk is a big step. And if you just allow yourself to know that and allow it to pop up here and there, if something you're doing brings up that same issue, let's call it an issue, just acknowledge, like, oh yeah, that's based on, my need to fix, or that's because I'm insecure, or that's because, when I was a kid, my parents said this and now I have a fear of this thing. Just acknowledging. That's about all you have to do with it to start. And if you allow yourself to acknowledge it and don't shove it out of the way, like ever, just kind of let it do its thing, your brain will kind of self-heal or start the process. And then the journey's fun. I get excited about these therapy sessions because I get to discover so much about myself. And having decided I'm not going to force myself to work on something if I discover something. Not force myself to fix it is very relieving and allows me to discover a lot more about myself. And it's just fun. Like, oh, that's why I'm that way. Oh, that means that one time like 30 years ago when I did that thing and I felt bad about it. Now I get why. Okay. I was always curious why I did that because I feel kind of bad about it. But now I kind of understand where that stems from. And, that makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. I'm not crazy. I just got some junk stuck up here. And that's why I do some of these things. Oh. I get it. That's neat. Now I know myself even more, and it's kind of a fun journey. So, check your symptoms and start just looking around. Start looking around. Got it running! You run, bitches! That's how you do it!